Hello, another podcast episode, and I want to talk about Phantom of the Opera because, as it turns out, last month there was news about Phantom of the Opera. I actually tried to do the video last month, and I just couldn't get the words out. I would get into editing, and it sounded like I was drunk. I get enough trolls, I don't need to give them fuel. So, but I'm actually glad that it didn't work out because as I was looking at more articles, I was like, oh, okay, there's bits and pieces here that are being missed. Okay, we're going to talk about that. All right. So, some sneaky business. All right. Choose the detective you want, be it Sherlock senses, Dick Tracy senses. I have a friend who not too long ago he said he was on a Dick Tracy kick. Uh, and I not too long ago watched the old Dick Tracy, not the one with Warren Beatty. Yeah, if you don't know, there are 1940s Dick Tracy, and in fact, Boris Karloff was in one of them, and it's called Dick Tracy Meets Dr. Gruesome. And I have that one, and I was watching it, and now I'm kind of on a Dick Tracy kick. So, anyway, back to this, back to Phantom of the Opera. So, if you're unaware, Andrew Lloyd Webber said that he wanted to turn Phantom of the Opera into an anime. Now, you would think that because I am a huge anime fan and Phantom of the Opera fan, I would jump on this and be like, yes! And at first I was. I was like, oh, cool. Well, again, we're going into detective mode on this. Okay. Because he pulled the plug. He did. He pulled the plug 2 years ago in 2023. In fact, the announcement was made in 2022. I think at the end of the summer of 2022, because I was still with my ex and he lives in New York. And I asked him, I said, did it just hit its run? I mean, is it all done? Nobody's going to see Phantom of the Opera? And he said, no, it's still selling out. So it confused people in New York from what he was telling me. And he, he even said there are there are things on Broadway that should be removed, not Phantom. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Why are they removing Phantom? And now in April of 2023, Phantom of the Opera was did its final production. It was dedicated to Andrew Lloyd Webber's late son. I remember all of that. I saw the thing on YouTube, and he made a wonderful speech, you know. And now here's the thing to understand if you're unaware of how it works. Okay, so a lot of times they will take productions off of stage, but then they will come back on, is what I'm saying. So, and a lot of times it's for like charity fundraisers, that kind of thing, or an anniversary, something or other, like say the 30th or 50th, that kind of thing. When I was in high school, Cats uh, left Broadway, but it has come back on several times back to stage. And I come across this quite a bit when I am researching stage actors and actresses, like in the Victorian and Edwardian era. They would retire but come back for these special productions of the show or what have you. And but here's the thing. Phantom has not done that. And yes, it's only been 2 years, but the point I'm making here is he pulled the plug. He pulled the plug on Phantom of the Opera. It has not come back at all. Now, I see a lot of times on videos wherever, like on Instagram. YouTube, wherever. And there are fans of Phantom of the Opera who are begging for it to come back to Broadway. This show needs to come back. It is so loved and everything, be it the theater kids, Phantom fans, Broadway fans, whatever. And they talk about it all the time. It is still a beloved show. And I do find it weird that instead of catering to his fan base, he goes over to another fan base. So that was a red flag for me. I I find that weird. I mean, yeah, and then it got me to thinking, okay, wait a minute. Here's another big red flag, the biggest red flag. Okay, so two of his productions went under controversy. So Evita and um Jesus Christ Superstar. So these two went under controversy. I'm not going to get too far into it because there are other channels that have talked about it. The pop culture channels have talked about it. And so heavy controversy surrounding those two. And the thing about Phantom of the Opera is that Phantom of the Opera has always been a huge success. Okay. For 30 some odd years, it was a huge success. I don't remember it ever having controversy. I don't remember ever hearing about it having controversy or anything like that. So it sounds to me like he's doing this to save his ass. Okay, two controversies, and so he falls on Phantom of the Opera. But the problem here is that you pulled the plug. You didn't bring it back ever that I could find because I did look. I did the footwork to look around, and I couldn't find where Phantom of the Opera ever came back on stage. Okay, now you can correct me, and I have no problem with that. I really don't. I just couldn't find where it had come back. Now, I am excluding where like people were singing songs for special events and that kind of thing. That's different. Okay. Because I know that that happens a lot of times. Say like a PBS special where they sing and like Tony Awards and that. That's different. Um, but as for Phantom of the Opera actually coming back to stage, never did that. Never did that. Um, so how come all of a sudden you're deciding to come back to Phantom of the Opera when you buried it after two controversies with two others? Yeah, that's a little odd. See, I would think, as I was saying before, I would think that because people are drunk, a lot of the theater kids and theater fans are drunk on Wizard of Oz because of that Oz movie with Cynthia Erivo and oh, I can't think of her name right now, but because he has a Wizard of Oz stage production. Okay, I would think that he would go in that direction. Eh, You know, that would seem more of a smart business move because everybody is so, I mean, like part two is coming out of that because Wicked did part one and part two is coming out. So why not do your stage production? It would make sense. Instead, you're going to Phantom of the Opera. It's okay. The one that you pulled the plug on and have not talked about in 2 years. You mysteriously got rid of it. It was still selling out, according to my ex who lived in New York. He would know. Okay. And not just him, because I had other friends who were there and they couldn't understand. They were scratching their heads. I have a friend, she goes to the theater all the time. She is a theater junkie. Okay. She has playbills all on her wall of all the different shows she goes to. She was devastated. She was like, "Why are they taking this off?" She said every time she goes to see Phantom of the Opera, it's sold out. It's a packed theater. It is still loved. Why is he doing this? She, she was mad at she's like, I'm gonna write an angry letter to Andrew Lloyd Webber. This is not okay. It's like, and she lives in New York. So yeah, I mean those two right there, my ex and my dear friend, was theater junkie. Yeah. And so this doesn't make sense to me. Why is he deciding to just kind of go over to the anime fan? All of a sudden he's like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna make an anime." What? This is a little sus. A little sus. And I'm an anime fan. Okay? So we're gonna look at this. Okay. All right. Now again, two under controversy, Evita and Jesus Christ Superstar, and he just decides to pull out of his butt that he's gonna make Phantom of the Opera an anime. All right. So this particular article, I'll have the articles, everything, all the information in the description box for you so you can look at it. All right. So Andrew Lloyd Webber's company has announced a rebrand. All right, so you're going to rebrand. Now, rebrands happen. Okay, companies rebrand themselves all the time. They go under reconstruction and all of that stuff. That happens. I don't have a problem with that. It's just the timing of the thing is a little weird to me. Two controversies. Okay. I'm I'm not going to let that go. Okay. Shut up, Frozen. I'm not letting it go. And no, I will not listen to the song. Yeah, it is the timing of it that after two controversies with two of his plays, he decides to suddenly rebrand. But it goes further than that. He also has decided that there are franchise expansions for his universe of stories that include anime. Why didn't you do this with cats? Remember that god-awful movie? You decided to put us through that horrendous movie. Because this is the thing. Now, I'm not a cat person. All right. I really don't like cats. But when it comes to anime, kitty cats work. Okay. They do. They're adorable in anime form. They really are. So why didn't you do this, good sir? Why didn't you start this when you got the idea to make a movie for cats? Like, it would have worked. Because I'm telling you right now, you look at all the different cats in anime. You look at like Sailor Moon's cat. What's the cat's name? Luna, and of course Kiki has her cat. And even in Trigun, every episode in Trigun, you look for that black cat. And Unico, yes, I'm showing my age. And Unico, there is a moment where this little girl is helping Unico, and she suddenly turns into a cat. I mean, it goes down the list of all these different cats in anime, but yeah, anime cats are cute. They're cute. They're adorable. You should have started there. Why didn't you start there? That was like the first thing that came to my mind when I was reading this. I was like, okay, so you want to do an anime and you're doing these franchise expansions, which put a pin in that because we'll come back to that. Uh, so you want to do this? Why with the anime? Why didn't you start with cats? It's, it would have worked. that would have made it a success. I'm not even joking. Okay, again, I'm not a big fan of cats. I'm more of a dog person, but there's just something about anime cats that they are cute. They really are. They're adorable. But I will say again that I do think that this project, because I don't think he's going to make anime out of any other project. Do you really think that he's going to make anime at a School of Rock? Because he did make a stage production at a School of Rock. And do you really think that he's going to make an anime out of Sunset Boulevard? And do you really think he's going to make an anime out of the Wizard of Oz stage production that he has, or Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor? Is that one of his? I can't remember. I think it is. You know, you go down the list of his other stuff. Do you really think that he's going to make an anime out of that? No. He's only going to make one out of this. So yes, this is him trying to pull his butt out of controversy by key jangling. So the metaphor of key jangling and being like, look, don't look at the bad. Look, guys, I have anime. I really do think that that's what he's doing right now. He had two bad shows, you know, that were rejected for one reason. And really all he had to do was make the final decision, and he didn't do that. That's what it just boils down to. I mean, they're his productions, and all he had to do was the final say. And he didn't do that. No, instead he catered. So that's on him. But now he's decided to come to Phantom of the Opera, which has been dead and buried for 2 years. And all of a sudden he's reviving it. He's doing a Frankenstein thing. And it's like, okay. Now look, people like Phantom of the Opera. They absolutely love Phantom of the Opera. But this is the problem that I see is that again, the theater kids, the Broadway fans, the Phantom of the Opera fans have all been saying the same thing. Put this back on Broadway, please. I don't understand why you took it off in the first place. And what does he do? He goes to an entirely different fan base, which is the anime fan base, and is like, I'm going to make an anime for you guys with Phantom of the Opera. That's kind of shitty. That's kind of shitty to do when you don't pay attention to the fans that have lifted you up for 30 plus years. You just discard them and go to somebody else entirely. Yeah, not a good look, my dude. Not a good look. All right. All right. So Deadline reports that the company, now known as LW Entertainment, again, I don't care that he rebranded. That happens all the time. It's just the timing of the thing. It does look a little odd, but rebranding happens always. And so LW Entertainment has plans for a Phantom of the Opera anime. Now, here's the thing. Okay, I did see not very many were talking about this. I think there was the comic book article, the journalist's comic book. They mentioned this, but not very many others did. There is only one animated, not anime, but animated film that is Phantom of the Opera, and that's in 1988. Okay. Now again, I did extra footwork. It looks like it's in the works because I didn't see a date on it or anything like that. So I think it's in the works. There is another animated piece, again, in the works. And it looks like it's one of those where the creator interacts with their characters. So Gaston Leroux will be interacting with like Christine and Raoul and I like those. I don't care what anybody says. Those are neat, except for the terrible claymation from the 80s that was Mark Twain. I don't know where they were going with that one. I think I talked about it years ago on this channel. And I noticed that a few other people have talked about it. Yeah, it's horrifying. I don't know how they considered that now look, there's a lot of things from the 80s that it's like, how did you consider that a kid's movie? I love that the Oz Wizard of Oz fans are now looking at Return to Oz and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you kids watch that?" It's like, "Yeah, I haven't seen it in my adult life." The Hallway of Heads. That those of you that have seen it, yeah, that terrified me and I haven't seen it since. So, this being said, I decided to look in the deep, dark archives of anime. And because I also did a video having to do with that anime in the 80s was centered around classic novels. I have seen the Little Women anime so many times. And it was because I had a childhood friend who absolutely loved that. Every time she came over to spend the night, we had sleepovers, whatever, she had to watch that one. And probably as soon as I watch it again, I will know it by heart. And there's nothing bad about it. I mean, it's a sweet anime about the Little Women, and I would recommend it. It's just I've seen it so many times. So I just figured that there was already an anime for Phantom of the Opera. I couldn't find one. So if he actually did this, it would be the first anime of Phantom of the Opera that I could find. And that's cool. That actually is really cool. But here's the problem. Okay. Now understand that this is the journalist saying this. It's not Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's not his company that said this. Okay, so um has plans for a Phantom of the Opera anime. An idea so wild is bound to work, and it's not completely out of left field. Sailor Moon's tuxedo mask is already so Phantom code. You missed the mark completely. Oh, okay. And there were people in the comment section that are, oh, they're not happy. They're not having it. This is me trying too hard to put this from my mind. Uh yeah, there is someone who is saying this is a terrific idea. This would include all the people who love anime. Most of these people would not usually be exposed to fandom. Anime as a step up in the art world. People don't talk like that. This is an obvious bot. Okay. Um when you're saying this would include all the people who love anime, no, because there are people in the comment sections who are rejecting it. Why did you use tuxedo mask? You uh, spelled tuxedo mask's name wrong. Barf. Um, this person doesn't have a job as a journalist anymore. Yeah, I mean, your job as a journalist is to sell the product. You know, you're supposed to be helping him sell this idea of anime, okay, of a Phantom of the Opera anime. And when you say something like that, you miss the mark completely. Yes, Tuxedo Mask wears a top hat and a cape and the tuxedo, but that doesn't mean he's phantom coded. Okay, you do understand that there are several characters in anime that just have that particular look. Okay, there are also characters in anime who also who dress like Dracula. I mean, Blackjack is a perfect character. Does anybody remember Blackjack? I I loved Blackjack. And I got to get back to reading Blackjack. But Blackjack was one of those that um he dressed like Dracula. But he wasn't Dracula. He had the cool hair. I liked his hair. He had that that Cruella de Vil looking hair. But he made it look cool. Okay. And he did it in the anime way. I'm sorry, I like Blackjack. I just it was one of those that I loved when I was a kid. Anyway, the thing about it is that yeah, there were a lot of those characters that had The top hat, the cape. Sometimes they had a cane too, and they were just those filthy rich aristocrat people. Others were the ones like there's a episode in Cowboy Bebop that's centered around amusement parks. Okay, and this character is going after Spike, and he's got the top hat, the cape, the suit, but the mask that he wears has the Joker smile. Okay, he's not phantom coded. All right. Just not phantom coded. No. Um, a lot of the disguises that Team Rocket wear, they're just trying to get Pikachu. Right. And so no. Um, but I was also noticing in quite a few of these that they were questioning if a Phantom of the Opera anime would work. Why wouldn't it? Y'all need to actually look at anime, okay? Look, I'm an old lady. I'm the grandma here of YouTube. I, I'm I'll tell you first and foremost, there are, like I said, there's anime that's based off of the classic novels. So why wouldn't it work? And especially when there's Akira. Okay. So why wouldn't Phantom of the Opera work? All right. How many of us were traumatized by Akira because our parents thought that it's just a cartoon? Oh, it's that. Never mind. Oh, golly. Yeah. I'm not sure why you were questioning it. And I mean, several of these were questioning. I have one right here, and it's talking more of the anime more than anything else, and we'll get to that in a second. Um, However, the merging of the Phantom of the Opera with the anime community is certainly a bold move. Why? Well, you've never seen a dark anime before? Shit, Bleach. You, Dragon Slayer. Do you think it will work in favor of the two industries, or will it suffer from the challenge of blending such contrasting art forms? You've never seen music next to anime? I think you need to watch more Studio Ghibli. See, the thing about Studio Ghibli is that it blends the music so well next to the that okay. Um, yeah. It's like they're questioning it and they're so stupid to it. It's set in see, Rama One Half has an episode where they have to do Romeo and Juliet. I think we're good. Fuck. I think we're okay. We're all right. Gosh. Y'all are spazzing out over this whole thing, and it's like, no, it's okay. It's all right. Considering, again, in the 80s, they did a bunch of anime centered around the classic. I mean, like one of the most famous is the one from the 70s that is The Little Mermaid. Okay, that stayed true to the story. Okay, before the TV series that I'm looking at on my channel. What are we doing? One of my favorite movies is anime and it's Nemo in Slumberland, Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland, and it's based off of Winsor McCay's uh, comic strip from the 1910s, which would be the same time that Gaston Leroux released his book. Actually, I think it was before. I don't remember if it was, but anyway. Um, but yeah, And and it has dark themes in it. I think we're okay. I mean, considering that in Nemo Adventures in Slumberland, it starts out where he's flying on the on his bed, the bed is flying around over the city and everything. And then all of a sudden, this train comes out of nowhere. Yeah, I think we're fine. Gosh. Well, this is a bold move. You act like this has never been done before. Fuck off. I swear to God, it's like these people watch Dragon Ball Z and it's like that's it. That's their that and Pokemon. But it's not the first generation of Pokemon. Calm down. Okay. So, so how is he going to do, how is Andrew Lloyd Webber going to do this? Because I'm sure you guys are like, well, he doesn't know a damn thing about anime. He knows Broadway, but what does he know about anime? Okay, so Quebec Pictures, Justin Leach. He's the one behind Leviathan, and I'm sorry if I say that incorrectly. That's on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's still I don't watch TV, so but he's overseeing the project, and I have an article here, the one that I was talking about before, that goes into more detail about his whole thing, which I think it's pretty much saying the same thing. Yeah, I went on his website. I will put his website in the description box, and I was reading his biography, which, uh, Justin, if you see this, you need to uh, condense your biography. I mean, it's great that you want to tell everybody about how much of a nerd you are and how dedicated you are to Japanese anime and how much you love it but you don't need to tell us every little detail. But oh my gosh. So he basically is saying that he wants to bring Phantom of the Opera to life through anime. The dude just wants to make anime. Okay. He's dedicated, he's an anime junkie, and that's great. He says that the goal is to create a timeless and emotionally resonant experience that speaks to a global audience and honors the legacy of this iconic story. Okay, now it took several articles for me to realize that this anime is more based on the Broadway show, not so much the book itself. Okay, a lot like the 2004 movie. The 2004 movie is more centered around um, the play, not the book, if that makes sense. And and uh, and now this one doesn't mention Gaston Leroux, but there are quite a few of these that do, and it does bother me that it's like hit or miss if Gaston Leroux is mentioned because it's like, okay, you do understand that if it weren't for Gaston Leroux, Andrew Lloyd Webber wouldn't have this big successful Broadway show. I mean, at this point, when you mention Andrew Lloyd Webber, people think of Phantom before they even think of Cats. And actually, Cats, it was for the longest time, it was, I mean, when I was in high school, people thought of Cats before they thought of Phantom of the Opera. But at this point, it's Phantom of the Opera before any other show. So, but that's because of Gaston Leroux. If he hadn't written that story, yeah, that's just, um, now remember when I said put a pin in franchise expansions? Okay, so quite a few of these would mention the expansions and just kind of leave it at that. They wouldn't say much else. Okay. I mean, it was like, yeah, there's other media things that LW Entertainment is partnering with and doing things. So we may hear more surrounding it. This just came right out and said it. This particular one came right out and said what it was. And this is where I was like, oh, okay. Again, key jangling, key jangling. Um, all right. So the anime is just one element in, as LW Entertainment told the trade. Again, this at this point it is LW Entertainment, so it is Andrew Lloyd Webber saying this, unlike before where the journalist was saying weird shit about Tuxedo Mask. So the anime is just one element in, as LW Entertainment told the trade, significant global plans for Phantom of the Opera over the coming years across live theater. Hold up. You had it on live theater and you took it off. Excuse you. See, this is, th- excuse me. So you do a rebrand and, huh? You can do all the cutesy words and all of that stuff. It's not gonna pass here, pal. You think I'm stupid? No, I'm not. See, you had two controversies with two plays. You buried this one, and now all of a sudden you're pulling it out of the grave and saying and abandoning the theater fans, theater Phantom of the Opera Broadway fans who have been begging for this to come back on Broadway and decided to come over to the anime fans. Real shitty, my dude. I can't emphasize that enough. And I also want to mention that this sounds like he is trying to take control of Phantom of the Opera. Cut out Gaston Leroux altogether and say, look at me now. You know how Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy are trying to cut people out? You know, they're trying to take control, like Kathleen Kennedy is trying to take control of and retcon everything and be like, look, this is mine now. Bob Iger is trying to do the same thing. He's trying to retcon everything that Disney ever did, that Walt Disney ever did, and trying to retcon the living shit out of it. He's not a storyteller. He's absolutely not. But he's trying to convince us that he is. Okay, well, we got another one, folks. Andrew Lloyd Webber. Okay, so he thinks that by shifting and doing this, you know, jumping through hoops and doing this little vaudeville act, that people are just going to clap their hands and go, yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, well, we're going to go for it. The fact is that anime fans are already saying no. They're already like, what? Are you serious? Now, again, this could have worked because it would have been the first Phantom of the Opera anime. Okay, you could have done something. Okay, but instead, you're you're saying this is actually saying that you have significant plans across live theater. You had that, and instead you decided to take it off. and you ignored everybody that was asking you to bring it back, and you decided to come over to the anime fan base and say, "Look what I got." Are you are you serious? Oh, but it gets better because he also says that he has significant plans with film, Phantom of the Opera with film. Or right, okay. As if there isn't a this is the 100th anniversary of the silent film. Okay, and I want to make it perfectly clear that when the talkie transition was happening, there was a talkie version of that film as well as a soundtrack. Dude, what you're doing is not special. Yes, you put music and dancing, but you want to know something? There was already that in the Lon Chaney version. You just put it on Broadway. Okay, what uh, gosh. All right. See, this is what happens when your ego gets so big, you think that you're the creator. Gaston Leroux created Phantom of the Opera, not you, you dumbass. Okay. So, live theater, film, publishing, we'll get back to that one in a minute. Music, and many other areas. This is why I don't think that he's going to use anime. See, this contradicts what it says at the beginning, because at the beginning of this article, it says the franchise expansions for Musical Maestro's universe of stories. But then down here, it says the anime is just one element in the significant global plans for Phantom of the Opera over the coming years. So which is it? So, ooh, which part is lying? Did you plan to do this with other of your plays, which I honestly don't believe he was going to anyway? I firmly believe that he was trying to pull his ass out of the fire after those two controversies with the other two plays. And again, he's trying to pile on as much as he can to continue to get people to be distracted from the controversies because he just can't handle being in controversy because he's a theater genius. No, you're not. Oh my gosh. I'm Andrew Lloyd Webber. Nobody cares. Okay. Look, I have nothing against people trying something new. If he wants to make an anime, no, I have no problem with that. Okay. Because right now, Ridley Scott is actually helping with a comic series. It's called Hyde. Last month, in fact, exactly a month ago, it was revealed Johnny Depp is the face of Jekyll and Hyde. I think that's wonderful. Okay. Of course, in his later years, Sir Christopher Lee did heavy metal. He's, he had a couple albums. Okay. Fantastic. And Margaret put out another album. Actually, I think it's her only album. She's in her 80s. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. All right. And in fact, Peter Cushing, before he died, it was like a couple years before he died, he appeared in a couple of music videos. You know, I really don't have anything against when you get older, you try something new, such as, you know, doing comic books, anime, you know, stuff like that. There is nothing wrong with that. I have absolutely nothing wrong with that. But he is all over the place in this. You know, the the whole thing with saying a rebrand with the universe of stories and then turning around and saying that it's global plans for Phantom of the Opera. So is it centered around just Phantom of the Opera? Or what about your other shows? So yeah, li little little sus here. Um, so yeah, the list is his global plans for Phantom of the Opera are live theater, film, publishing, music, and many other areas. You had the music, remember? But it wasn't just you, okay? Because there are bands that center themselves and their music around Phantom of the Opera. I have a band, there's an album that I have that centered their music around the silent film. Okay, you're not special. This kind of junk really bothers me. Again, he has decided to cut out Gaston Leroux, and it's now him. Okay. The thing is that the Broadway show wouldn't have happened if not for Gaston Leroux. That's just the bottom line. All right. Let's just cut the shit right now. Now, it continues. If ever a property was suited for the current romantasy trend in publishing, it's this. I got news for you. Phantom of the Opera was already published. Everything we need to know about these characters is already in. So basically, part of this was a partnership with Penguin Random House. Okay, and it says here a reimagining of the Gothic love story that will bring a new voice to Christine. We already know her love story. This is shitty fan fiction. Okay, this is the thing about romantasy right now. Okay, so last month there was an event with romantasy writers and readers, or a specific writer. I don't care, honestly. But the thing is that there was an event, there was an incident, and people are investigated now. It turns out that what they were reading became, the fantasy just became reality. They can't say, well, it's just fiction. No, it's not. Not anymore. Not with you. All right. That's just the bottom line. So that the truth of the matter is, I've said it before, when it comes to romantasy, it's not selling. Okay, the romantasy readers are having temper tantrums beyond reason because their stuff isn't selling. They're blaming mainly men. It's the white straight men and all of this stuff. And it's like, no, it's just people don't want to read that crap. Okay, people don't want to read pornography. People don't want to read about violence and all of that stuff. What you think is romance. That's not what it is. All right. People don't want to read that crap and everything else. And now that they have bled fantasy into reality or fiction into reality, now they're being investigated. Okay. Yeah, this is the problem. Well, now Andrew Lloyd Webber has decided to connect Phantom of the Opera with this problem. This is controversy number three. Okay. Good luck. Good luck, my man. All right. This is the bottom line. I don't it, it's shitty fan fiction. These are people who are still drunk on Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey and make it a hell of a lot more violent in their fan fiction writing. And, you know, I don't understand how it is. I mean, these people will fuck anything. Okay, you have Phantom of the Opera that is about a deformed man who terrorizes everything, who just wants to be loved. And I can only imagine what they're going to write about and their sick and twisted fantasies. But yeah, good luck with this, Andrew Lloyd Webber. So, in closing, you know, it could have been a cool thing. You know, Phantom of the Opera, an anime, it hasn't happened. It really hasn't happened. In fact, there is a video game that is called Persona Opera Xanokage, and the graphics look very anime-esque. And so a lot of people who see these graphics think that, and I'll put information in the description box for you. A lot of people seem to think that it does have an anime. It does not. It does have um, a manga, and but no, no anime. I checked this morning and I couldn't find an anime to save my life. And no, we didn't get the Ace Attorney effect on this one. I like Ace Attorney a lot. And yeah, Ace Attorney started as a video game, got a manga and anime. I think several anime actually. But anyway, but that's about as close as we've gotten. Okay, is this video game. And but we have the animated movie from 1988, and like I said, there's that one that I guess is in the works where Gaston Leroux would interact with the characters. Other than that, no anime. I could not find an anime of Phantom of the Opera, and it would be really cool to have an anime that is Phantom of the Opera. I mean, I am surprised that they didn't make one in the 80s, considering all the dark stuff that was coming out in the 80s. But I really do think that this is him trying to save his own ass. And again, the rebrand I don't care about. I really don't care because rebrands happen all the time. Uh, it's two controversies, and so he falls back on Phantom of the Opera. But you pulled the plug, dude. You pulled the plug on this one. If you had brought it back to Broadway, it would make more sense. See, that would make sense. If he had brought it back like for some kind of charity thing or even for some kind of special Tony something or other, that would make sense. But that never happened. And so and especially when when there's a contradiction here where it says, the franchise expansions for his universe of stories, but then it turns out that he's saying the anime is just one element in the significant global plans for Phantom of the Opera in the coming years. So he is focusing on Phantom of the Opera, nothing else. And me personally, I think he should have, because everybody is drunk on Wicked, because the second movie is coming out, he should, because he does have a stage production of Wizard of Oz, he should have gone with that. Yeah. So anyway, this is not going to work well for him if he's trying to connect uh romantasy with Phantom of the Opera. Not going to work out so well because people are rejecting romantasy, and especially with romantasy being in a world of trouble right now because of the incident that happened last month. Um, you're going to be in controversy number three. Okay, if you thought that this was going to help you get out of trouble, you're in it again. All right. Well, anyway, I'll close up here.